They say the sea is the cradle of life, and it's not just talk. The first single-celled organisms appeared in the ocean about 3 billion years ago, and they've been there ever since. About 70% of our planet is covered in water. We couldn't have asked for a better place to start our journey into space. But what if one day we looked out over the familiar horizon and realized that the vast expanse of the ocean had vanished overnight? What if all the water had turned to vapor and disappeared into the sky? It might sound like an unlikely scenario, but scientists really do worry about this, although not quite yet. Today, we'll tell you how much water can be evaporated off the Earth, whether it's possible to die of thirst in a world without an ocean, and whether we can still go swimming even after the apocalypse. So buckle up. First things first, let's figure out how much water we're talking about. There are three main: the Arctic Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. In total, their volume is 1.3 billion cubic kilometers. Now, if you take into account the water contained in lakes, rivers, and groundwater, that figure will rise to 2.69 billion cubic kilometers. That's more than enough to fill up the Grand Canyon in 100 million years. Even though the amount of water on Earth is huge, in reality, we only have access to a small part of it. Most of the water isn't just too salty. It also contains dangerous pollutants and bacteria. And when it comes to groundwater, getting to it often requires complicated and expensive drilling operations. The easy-to-access freshwater is only 0.02% of all the water on Earth, which means that the amount of usable water is about 4,200 cubic kilometers. And that's not a lot considering the fact that half of humanity needs to drink and farm. To put it simply, we could run out of drinking water pretty quickly. A major drought in California showed just how serious the situation is. It lasted almost 4 years and covered an area of over 300,000 square kilometers. The economic damage was estimated at nearly $350 billion. And scientists predict similar situations will happen more often because of climate change. But those are just peanuts compared to what will happen if the whole ocean evaporates. But let's think about it. What will it actually take to evaporate all the water from Earth's oceans? First, let's consider how water evaporates naturally. As the sun's rays heat the Earth's surface, some of the water turns into vapor and rises into the atmosphere. On average, this process removes about 500 kilometers cubed of water from the oceans every year. But don't get excited yet. It would take more than 2 million years to completely evaporate all the water on Earth at that rate. Let's look at more realistic scenarios. For example, what would happen if the sun suddenly expanded and engulfed Mercury? This would mean the end for both the planet and its ocean. But even if Mercury remains intact, its gravity will affect the balance of water on Earth. Gravity is what keeps the Earth and other celestial bodies in orbit around the sun. Each planet has a certain gravitational pull depending on its mass. Now, if Mercury, which weighs about 89 billion tons, were to approach the Earth, the gravitational forces between them would be noticeable. Because Mercury would be closer to the sun than Earth, it would periodically hide behind the star and disappear from our view. But this would have a big impact on us. When Mercury lines up with the sun and Earth, tidal waves, strong earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions may occur on Earth. Also, the Earth's climate would change dramatically, and I'm not just talking about the temperature rising by a few degrees. According to some estimates, it could get as much as 6 degrees Celsius warmer. Plus, the axis of the Earth could shift by several degrees. That could lead to massive climate change, and you guessed it, most of the ocean would evaporate. And that's not all. Mercury would mess up the protective ozone layer of the Earth, making life impossible on our planet. But even if it doesn't come close enough to cause all that trouble, it'll still affect the water balance. If Mercury passes within 10 million kilometers of Earth, its gravity could pull up to 10% of our planet's water into the atmosphere. And if it gets even closer, the numbers will be even scarier. During the last time Mercury passed between the Sun and Earth, which happened in 2020, its gravity raised the sea level by a few millimeters. That might seem like nothing, but it was still the highest tide in England in the last 225 years. So yeah, that wasn't exactly good news. And what if the reason for the impending ecological catastrophe wasn't an innocent cosmic neighbor but the humans themselves? Take World War III, for instance. If it's fought with the same weapons as World War II, It will last 2 to 3 weeks and result in the death of 6 million people. But if it's a full-blown nuclear war with all the countries involved, the consequences will be devastating. According to conservative estimates, the blast wave from the bombs will destroy all buildings within a radius of 100 kilometers and everything organic within a radius of 10 kilometers. Nuclear winter will follow, during which temperatures will drop by 15 to 25 degrees, and most living things will freeze to death. But later, when the dust settles and the temperature returns to normal, the survivors will face another problem. Radioactive fallout will kill most plants and animals, but that won't be the biggest problem. People will have to deal with the lack of water. Fallout also affects water, turning it radioactive. If you drink such water, you'll get radiation poisoning, which will eventually lead to organ failure and death. After a nuclear war, clean water will be worth more than gold. Survivors will likely fight over it, and those who have access to it will become the new rulers of the world. Perhaps they'll live on in the future, as the ancestors of the mutants from the Mad Max movies, who also had to deal with dehydration in a radioactive wasteland. Speaking of which, in the movie Fury Road, the characters didn't have an ocean either. Instead, they had a dried-up lake called the Sea of Sand. Maybe that's how our planet will look in the near future. In 2010, NASA experts published a rather strange article titled Ocean Loss on Early Earth, Evidence from Isotope Ratios of Martian Carbonates. They wrote that back in the early stages of its existence, the Earth was hit by giant meteorites, causing most of the water to evaporate. Back then, the Earth was extremely hot and inhospitable, and the water that did exist quickly turned into steam. However, it was still enough to support the first forms of life. So maybe if the planet survives a nuclear apocalypse, it'll go back to how it was 4 billion years ago. But what if the sun goes out? That's right. Even the brightest and most powerful stars eventually run out of fuel and die. When that happens, the Earth will turn into a frozen, lifeless planet and all water will freeze over. It'll become so cold that even rocks will crack, due to the rapid expansion of ice. Over time, the water will sublimate, meaning it'll turn directly from solid to gas without becoming liquid. But where will it go? Space, my friend. All the water vapor will escape into space. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. Well, now you know why scientists are worried. They believe that global warming may cause the very same thing. In this case, we're talking about a rise in average temperatures of 2-3 degrees and higher. But don't jump to conclusions yet. Although global warming is undoubtedly a serious problem, scientists have conducted various studies and concluded that even if it continues developing at the same pace, the ocean won't evaporate anytime soon. There's no need to panic yet, but it's still worth thinking about what to do if one day you find yourself in a world without an ocean.